Hello and welcome to one more interesting video from the channel Microtechie. In this video, we are going to talk about the tool Scenario Manager. In my earlier videos, I have shared the inputs about the tool GoalSeek and the Solver, which also belong to the same family. Now, this tool is quite different from the GoalSeek and Solver. Without much ado, let's get into the Excel screen and let's start exploring how to use this tool. Okay, so we are now in the Excel screen and I'm using the same example which I have used for the goal seek and the solver. Now let's take the same data, which is actually a calculation which derives to the price of the product from multiple parameter. All right, now how scenario manager is going to come into the help here. Now let us say the goal seek and the solver, if you understand the earlier videos which I've posted already in the channel, those are talking about the desired output, what you really want, but you do not know how much variation you would require in the input. So the variation on the input was not known to you, and goal seek and the solver was helping you to find that to reach the desired output. So the output is known, but the variation on the input is not known to you. Now if you take scenario manager, it is exactly reverse of the earlier two. Now here you are going to have a very clear idea about how much change you're going to do on the input value, but what you're not sure or what you are interested to learn is what is the impact or the change which is going to happen on my output. So the variation of the input is known to you, but the impact on the output is not known to you. Now, why does the name Scenario Manager has been given to this particular tool? Now, every change you do on the input and that variations can be stored as scenarios, so that when you discuss with the decision maker, you can show them, hey, scenario number one, if I change the value by this much, then this is the impact on the output. Scenario number two, if I change the same value to another different value, then this is the impact on the output. Scenario number three, if I keep one input constant, the other input, if I change by this much percentage, this is the output impact. Scenario number four, if I change both or multiple inputs by 10%, 20%, this is the impact on the output. So every single change which you're going to make it on the input which is known to you, you can save that as a scenario, so that when you discuss with the people or you yourself, when you want to analyze, you can analyze them by scenario. So this is going to help you a lot when it comes to decision making, so that you know that, okay, this is what is going to happen on the output when I do these kind of changes on the input. So you can take a call which change you're going to take it, which changes you're not going to allow it. Yeah, so let's go ahead and see how do you save those changes on the input as a scenario, and how do you check out the impact on the output. So check out this example right now. This is our master calculation, which is under the cell C20. Right now the pricing is $341.04. Now I decided to change two inputs, okay, and I want to save them as one of the scenario, and later I have another two inputs, I want to save them as another scenario, and then finally I want to do a change in one more input and I want to save that as one more scenario. So totally three scenarios I want to save it, because I got to do three changes on my inputs and I want to understand what is the impact happens on my output when I do those changes. All right, so let's go ahead and access the scenario manager. The scenario manager is under the data tab, under the forecast group. Let's go to what if analysis, scenario manager. The first step is you would not see anything in the scenario manager because you haven't started to save anything as a scenario. This is the first thing which you will see when you click on the scenario manager for the first time. So let's start adding our first scenario. I'm going to give this name sub parameter 1.3 and 2.2 change. Okay, this is 1.3 and 2.2 are the two parameters I'm going to change by 50%. That's the first change I'm trying to do. So this is the first box where you have to define the name for the scenario, okay, so that it will help you what you exactly did there. So I'm going to click on the changing cells and I'm going to select my changing cells, which are subparameter 1.3, and holding my control key, and I'm going to click on subparameter 2.2. So once I selected those two, I'm going to come back to the selection point again, and I want to click OK. So what's going to happen right now? It's going to show the current values inside those parameters. So we want to reduce them by 50%. So 24 gets reduced to 12 and 19 gets reduced to 9.5. So once that change is done, click OK. Now that is your first scenario. So let's go ahead and add the second scenario, and this scenario is parameter 2.4 and 3.4 change by 50% again. So again, I want to click on the changing cell, but these are subparameter 2. Sorry, I forgot what are the names. We get 2.4 and 3.4. So let's click the 2.4, hold the control key, and 3.4. So let's click OK. So what it's going to show you right now, the current values. The current value on the subparameter 2.4 is 40.95. So let's reduce this to 50%. So 40.95, which is going to be for us 20.475. Okay. Then I'm going to go for the C17 cell, which is holding the subparameter 3.4. Currently it is 21. So I'm going to go ahead and say it's going to be 10.50. So I'm going to click OK. And the second scenario is also stored. Now let's go to the final scenario. I'm going to click add, and I want to change subparameter 3.6. So I'm going to give the name as sub 3.6, and the cell which is going to change is 3.6 value. So clicking OK, and that's going to show the current value, which is 35. I want to reduce that to 17.5, 50% reduction. So click OK. All three scenarios are done. Now we want to see all these three, what kind of impact it creates on the output, which is the pricing of the product. So we want to see this, all these three along with the original values. What was the original price and what's the change happened on the price after these scenarios are created. So let's go ahead and click on the button summary. So when I click on the button summary, it's going to ask you to select this result cell. Result cell is nothing but the cell where the final calculation, where we have the final output and where we want to see what changes happens on that output. So that is already selected because we called this particular option by being over there, so it automatically selected it. That's going to ask you, would you like to produce this as a summary? Yes, that's what I'm looking for. So we're not going to do any changes here. Click OK. Now if you watch it, it shows you the current version, current value is nothing but without any changes done on the input. The output is 341.04. But let's talk about the first scenario, which is changing the subparameter 1.3 and 2.2 by 50%. We reduced them to 50%, and what is shown to you is if you're going to do that, this is what the impact on the output. So the output is going to come down to 331.99. Now talk about this next scenario where we changed the subparameter 2.4 and 3.4 by 50%. So that is creating impact on the output, which goes to 307.79. Now the last the criteria or the scenario what we created was changing the subparameter 3.6 by 50%, reducing it by 50%, and that gives us the impact of 321.44. Now the beautiful part about the scenario summary, it shows you the current value, what it is, and the current result, what it is, and it is also presenting in the next columns for how many of the scenarios you created. It is showing you what is the impact happening on the output when you change those input by certain values, certain percentages. You can study them. So let's say for example, I am trying to see where I don't lose much price is when I change the subparameter 1.3 and 2.2. I don't lose a lot of money because it is hardly around around 9 point something. So I would love to go for that scenario. I might reject the rest of the scenario. I'm not going to go with that. I'm going to go with the first scenario, which gives me a lesser price, but without so much loss in the original price, which is close to $10, not more, less, not more than that. But if you take the scenario 3, we're going to lose more than almost the $34, and the other one is almost $20, but this one is a $10 reduction. So we would love to go for that particular scenario. So that's how you take a call, by looking at the impact on the output. So I believe this example would have given you that scenario manager is something which you got to think about when you got a calculation, and you want to change one of the input by certain percentages or certain values, but you would love to see for each of those changes what happens in the output, so that you can discuss with your next level or the decision maker, and you can show them this is what the impact happens when I reduce this particular parameter in input by this much percentage. This is a very, very handy tool. Okay, so I hope you got some idea about this tool from this video, and I'm going to come up with the last one, which is data table, the last member of this family, in my upcoming video. So don't miss to watch that. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon, so that next time when I post the video for the data table, you will get notified and you can join with me one more time. Until then, take care of yourself. Signing off, Hariharan.